Hi everybody, this is Brian David Marshall at the brand new deck tech table here in the news desk set for Pro Tour Avacyn Restored in Barcelona, Spain. There could not be a more fitting person to sit down for our first live deck tech than Conley Woods. He has a regular reservation at the deck tech table.
I try.
And we're here to talk about a deck that you've been calling the Cranberries.
Yeah, mostly named after the song because I've been singing all week, annoying my teammates.
Sing a little bit for us now.
No, I'm not singing.
It's
not
live.
Not a chance. Not a chance.
So, the song "Zombies" by the Cranberries. Now, Team Channel Fireball, the team you've been playing with for the last couple of years, they're not on this deck.
No, I couldn't. I tried convincing them, but I don't know. They wanted to play it safe with a green-white deck that we'd been working on all week. I thought it was a worse choice, but it probably is a safer choice because in the mid game it does produce a little more consistent turns, but because everything's kind of like 3 mana. But I thought that this was a better choice for the tournament, so I went ahead and played it. I've been playing the team deck for the most part, but in this time I just disagreed with the choice, and so decided to go rogue.
Well, I mean, that's what you do well. Yeah. One of the things about the green-white deck that you mentioned to me when we were pre-gaming was that the only real removal in the deck
is Fiend Hunter.
Fiend Hunter. And you've kind of loaded up on removal here.
Yeah, I mean, when you go black, you get access to a ton of removal. That's one of the best things of the color.
So start with a card like Deadweight.
Yeah, Deadweight's taking out Huntmasters and Champion of the Parish after they played a creature. The fact that Victim of Night and Tragic Slip have difficulty dealing with Huntmaster makes Deadweight kind of an all-star at times.
So Tragic Slip deals with that first turn,
yeah,
Champion of the Parish.
Good with your sacrifice outlets and whatnot. And then Victim of Night, primary purpose is killing things like Wolfear, Silverheart, or Fiend Hunters.
While it can't kill werewolves, it's perfectly good at collecting wolf pelts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we'll get to this card in a little bit. It's not quite removal. It's more of like almost like a fireball for you.
Essentially.
Let's talk about the zombies themselves.
Pretty sweet curve with 8 good solid 1-drops.
8 1-drops. You have 4 Gravecrawlers.
I mean, one of the main reasons to pack more zombies in your deck is playing Gravecrawler. The synergy is just huge, and you can combo it later with sacrifice outlets that we'll talk about, and then your drain life cards.
Okay, and then Diregraf Ghoul. Not a card I think a lot of people were thinking about when it came to constructed. For block constructed anyway.
Sure.
Certainly the card has done some work in standard.
Definitely.
2 drops we see.
Highborn Ghoul hasn't really seen too much play in, but the fact that nobody else is really playing black decks really makes him essentially a 2-1 unblockable.
Right.
There's very few black creatures in the format, so he's pretty solid. I had 4 Skirsdag High Priest because they're very, very good in the creature matchups when you're making demons, but I wanted to fit a 21st land in after my teammates pestered me to do so, so I went down to 3 of that guy.
Butcher's Ghoul.
Again, another draft, late pick draft card, but it has some nice synergy with High Priest because it can block and comes right back to make a demon immediately, and also
so you get your Morbid setup, and you have the creature that you can
Whereas
tap.
Geralf's Messenger, when he dies, he comes back tapped, so you don't get to use that.
Sure.
And he also is decent against wrath effects like Bonfire of the Damned.
So talking about Geralf's Messenger and the 3 drops.
Probably the best card in the deck, probably the best reason to go mono black. He's just a very good card. I mean, everyone played the card if it was a different color combination, but him being so black heavy kind of restricts it to this.
Now, perhaps a card that a lot of people didn't have in their 3 drops and they're thinking about the zombie deck.
We actually didn't have it.
Is a little vampire.
We actually didn't have it until the last couple of days, but it works really well with the deck. You can play it and just kill them immediately with your drain life effects, which we'll get to later. But he also does good things like getting through Rolling Tumbler because he gets big enough and you sack the rest of your creatures, or getting through Bonfire of the Damned because you sack the rest of your creatures, or even making their Blasphemous X cost a few more mana because you anticipate it and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to sacrifice a couple of creatures and let it, cost 7 mana instead of 5.
Right. One of the cards that is doing a lot of work for you this week is the Blood Artist.
Blood Artist. It got spoiled a little bit in standard. I was a little bummed about that, but it's one of the key cards of the deck. It gives you that all-in fireball combo turn, and it also just makes combat math really difficult for just aggro players, like green-white decks, for example. If you play 2 Blood Artists, they have a very difficult time just attacking into you because you just chump block and drain them for 2. And
you have 4 Blood Artists, and you like the card so much that you added in
another draft staple.
2 Falkenrath Nobles.
Yeah, it's essentially there just as additional copies of Blood Artist. It's clearly worse because it's 4 mana instead of 2. But flying is actually good. There's not a ton of flyers in the format, so he'll get in 2 damage by himself, and then usually set up some type of combo turn where you just kill them the following turn.
Right. And then so that's what 39 cards that we just looked at. And then you have 21 swamps for your lands.
I had 20 for a while. The deck really doesn't like hitting 5 or 6 mana.
There.
5 or 6 mana is really difficult for the deck because a lot of its cards are synergy based, so they don't stand on their own. So if you only draw 3 spells, it's difficult to win a game. The one exception now with the Bloodflow Connoisseurs is that you can set up a Gravecrawler Bloodflow. For every black mana, you get a counter and possibly drain because you can just keep buying your Gravecrawler.
So explain how that works for people. So we have a Bloodflow Connoisseur.
Any zombie in play, let's say Diregraf Ghoul, and then a Gravecrawler. So for every black mana, you sacrifice the Gravecrawler to the Bloodflow Connoisseur, which is going to put a +1/+1 counter on him. Then you pay a black, return the Gravecrawler to play because you have a zombie in play, and you continue to do so, getting your Bloodflow Connoisseur as large as possible. If you have a Blood Artist or a Falkenrath Noble, obviously things get even more crazy because you start draining them for 1 with every single iteration of that. So it gives you something to do with your mana, but you still don't like hitting like 6 mana. It's pretty difficult.
Now, one of the cards I really wanted to talk about here is Killing Wave.
Yeah, there was 3 of them in the deck until we added the Bloodflow Connoisseurs because they kind of give you that similar effect, but they're more proactive. Killing Wave's great against creature decks because when you have Blood Artists in play, when you pay it for, let's say, 2 or 3, they're actually faced with a choice that they just lose. They either sacrifice their creatures and get drained via Blood Artist, or they don't sacrifice their creatures and they get drained via Killing Wave. So it's really good in this aggressive style of black deck, even though it's a very narrow card. I actually played against an Angel of Glory's Rise Reanimator deck, which I'm sure people have seen or talked about, where he reanimated Angel of Glory's Rise on turn 4, which is pretty difficult for zombies to beat because it removes all your zombies. And then the game kind of stalled out because I had a Blood Artist and a Falkenrath Noble, and he couldn't attack me with his 1/1s because I would just drain him, and he was at 9 life. He hardcast Gristlebrand on turn 8, and I'm thinking like the game's over unless I draw Death Wave. But I draw Death Wave, I cast it for 4. He has to choose to either sacrifice his creatures or pay 4 life, and he's at 9 life. And I have 3 creatures in play, which I'm fine sacrificing all of them. So that's 6 damage right there because it's a Falkenrath Noble, a Blood Artist, and a random zombie. So then each creature, whether he sacrifices it, he takes 2 damage. If he doesn't sacrifice it, he takes 4 damage. So he just died on the spot, despite having 2 gigantic monsters in play and 30 creatures or whatever.
Right. A testament to the power of Killing Wave.
Yeah, it's a card you really only want to draw 1 of, so I cut it down to 1. But I could see more copies of it, but Bloodflow Connoisseur kind of proxies as it in this deck.
Sure. So we saw you using Crypt Creeper out of the sideboard against John.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was 100% correct, but it blocks Geist of St. Trapp's the main reason it came in. But again, he was an all-star in the Angel Glory's Rise deck because they really don't have a way to remove him, so they can't try to reanimate their Angel. He's also okay against Reanimator because you're a fast enough deck that if they try to deal with him, you're at least getting in damage. And yeah, he's not an all-star, but he's solid.
Right. Where are you bringing in Appetite for Brains?
Mainly control matchups. It deals with things like...
Very flavorful sideboard card here, by the way.
I don't think it's the greatest card, but it deals with Huntmaster and Garrick, which are the premier 4-drops. It deals with Terminus, Blasphemous Act as Wrath effects, Curse of Death's Hold, which I don't think a lot of people are playing, but it's a pain to deal with. So dealing with all those things, and Witchbane Orb. The deck does a lot of direct damage via Blood Artist, Falkenrath Noble, and Geralf's Messenger. So if they have a Witchbane Orb in play, you kind of don't get to do that combo finish. So just taking anything preemptively with Appetite for Brains is pretty solid.
So you have a 4th copy of the Victim of Night in your sideboard. Talk about Human Frailty.
Human Frailty is a solid sideboard card. Everything's human in this format, it seems. I actually had 4, but I made 1 a Victim of Night to deal with the Gristlebrand is the main reason. But yeah, dealing with Fiend Hunters and Champion the Parish, no matter how large they get, and it kills Huntmaster, it kills pretty much anything. Like, there's just so many humans.
Tragic Slip you have to have on turn 1 for the champion.
Yeah, unless you're setting up a sacrifice effect later on.
But with Human Frailty, you can get like a 5/5 champion.
Instant speed's so good against Fiend Hunter. It's just a great card. It's one of the best sideboard cards in black, if not the best sideboard card.
Tell me about Demonic Rising.
I can't tell you that much about it because I haven't played a single game where I've actually cast it, but it's theoretically in here against control. You're only playing 21 lands, so you can't reliably cast it until around turn 7 or 8. But the theory is that they wrapped all your creatures a couple of times, and then finally, after you brought back maybe a Geralf's Messenger or a Butcher Ghoul as your only creature in play, you drop this, you immediately get a 5/5 demon, and now they have to kill both your threats, or they're getting a demon attacking, or deal with none of your threats, in which case you're attacking them for 5. So it's really that post-Wrath follow-up, and there's no enchantment removal in this format. Nobody plays it. At least there's plenty of good enchantment removal, but nobody plays it. So it's the theoretical card against control. I haven't played against control yet, so we'll see how that goes if it happens.
Sure. You get another copy of Skirsdag High Priest, the 4th one in the sideboard.
He got cut for the 21st land, but he's really good in creature matchups, so I want to bring in the 4th one of those matchups.
1 Cursed Death's Hold. That seems like an odd card for you.
Yeah, it's a little odd. It's difficult to cast, but I thought if there's any mirror matches, even if it's just a traditional zombies deck, not the combo zombies, if you will, it's really good. It kills their Gravecrawlers forever. forever, deals with their Highborn Ghouls forever, deals with Crypt Creepers, deals with Blood Artists if they have them. Just keeps everything small too, so manageable. And I also brought it in against John because he had Invisible Stalker, and it's like the only way to deal with that card.
Sure, that sounds very good.
But yeah, it's not going to be an all-star, but I think it's really good in those kind of grindy, small creature matchups.
And then final one of in the sideboard is Sever the Bloodline.
Yeah, just kind of a catch-all. Deals with wolf ears pretty nicely. Again, I brought it in against John because he had wolf ears. It just gives you another out to larger creatures that people might play multiples of. Also very good against the Reanimator decks. After they brought back their Grosser Brand, you remove it for forever, and they can't bring it back the very next turn.
So one of the things that may be surprising to people who've seen standard iterations of zombie decks is the lack of Diregraf Captain.
Yeah, in Standard you have significantly better mana. You have 8 blue-black dual lands and 4 Caverner Souls. So you can cast a Diregraf Captain without running a single island in your deck, which is key. In this deck, if I wanted to run Diregraf Captain, and I also tried Falkenrath Aristocrat, you can play Caverner Souls, which is good at casting either of those because you have enough vampires or zombies that Caverner Souls is essentially a dual land. But beyond that, you actually have to place some number of islands in your deck. Every time you draw an island and it's one of your first 3 lands, Geralf's Messenger becomes a turn slower.
This card never wants to see an island.
Exactly. Victim of Night doesn't want to see island or Caverner Souls since it's double lack, so you have to cut the Victim of Nights if you add Caverner Souls and islands. And the mana just gets completely jumbled. And Diregraf Ghoul is solid, and he's better than Falkenrath Noble, but for the mana cost, I would rather run a card like Falkenrath Noble, which has a similar impact on the game, even though he's a little bit worse.
So there's no friendly colors, there's no aligned color dual lands.
Allied dual lands.
So, but you have a card like Isolated Chapel, which gives you black-white, so any thought to like maybe going for a Sorin or...
Yeah, Sorin's powerful. The problem is, again, you get 1 dual land, and you don't want to run planes because the same reason I talked about. So when you turn to a card like Caverner Souls doesn't cast Sorin, so now you have 1 dual land to cast Sorin, and when you turn to white, one of the huge incentives is Vault of the Archangel, which is a colorless land. So now your land count goes up to 24. You maybe deal with the Flood a little bit better because you have Vault of the Archangel, but I don't think Sorin is worth just butchering your mana base. I think being monocolor in this format is a huge leg up that this deck gets over pretty much any other deck. There's almost no other monocolor decks except for maybe mono green, but they usually even splash blast in sack.
So tell me when you're building this deck, you're looking at the green-white deck, you're weighing this deck. What are the decks you were expecting to face off against in Block Constructed this weekend?
Well, I definitely expected to face green-white or various green-white Naya. Pretty much any. There's some Bant decks, but mostly Naya or green-white. And I thought that this was significantly better against the deck than the mirror match, which is what my other teammates around to play. They've shown trouble against like Bonfire of the Damned and Huntmaster, against people playing essentially the same deck but with red. And I really don't care about those cards. Like Bonfire of the Damned maybe kills 2 creatures, but maybe they're taking 4 when they cast it or whatever. And they can almost never hard cast it against me. Like their best play is casting on turn 3, maybe getting a Gravecrawler and a Highborn Ghoul if they're lucky. And like I said, they might just be getting drained for a bunch, or I might be making a demon after they do that. It's just not that great of a card against me. Terminus is probably the best wrath against this deck, but they have to miracle it. A 6-drop Terminus is not scary.
Right. Your game is over before turn 6,
hopefully,
one way or the other,
hopefully,
right?
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's not over. Maybe I'm setting up something huge, but even then, like maybe I could sacrifice everything to a Bloodflow Connoisseur before Terminus and put him to 1 or something, and then I'm top decking to a Geralf's Messenger or something.
Any decks you've seen this weekend so far that have taken you by surprise?
Not really. John and I guess some of the SCG team, they're playing like a blue-green Invisible Stalker deck, and I wasn't sure how popular it would be. It showed up on Magic Online a little bit. I didn't expect to necessarily face it because I didn't know how popular it would be, but I wasn't surprised by it. And then I played the Angel Glory's Rise Reanimator, which I expected to be popular because it gets around Grafdigger's Cage better than just the all-in Reanimator deck. And then in round 1, I played against just like a Dredge, Splinter Fright Rug deck, and all those decks are pretty common. There's not a ton of variants in the format just because it's block. It's not a huge. There's not a lot of cards available, so you see a lot of the same kind of interactions, even if people put them in different combinations. Maybe one deck has Huntmaster with Restoration Angel, and the other deck has Huntmaster with some green card, but it's still a Huntmaster deck or whatever. You still know what you're getting into beforehand.
Are you sure I can't get you to sing a couple bars?
No,
but it's before we.
Not happening.
We're not allowed to sing actually on the coverage team.
Oh, that's a rule?
That's a rule. It's a hard and fast rule. I'm looking at you, Rich Hagon.
I applaud them for that.
But you, we would welcome.
Not happening.
We would welcome a little bit of music from you. All right. Well, Conley Woods, thank you for coming in and christening this new set with us.
Of course.
And talking about your deck, the Cranberries.
I don't know if that name will stick. Whenever you're sitting down, you have to write down a deck name. You're like, what is it going to be? And if Brian David Marshall isn't over your shoulder coming up with a name for you, it's going to be terrible. It's one thing he does better than anybody else, deck naming.
That's the one thing?
I mean, it's the only thing I'm willing to admit.
Okay. All right, well, Conley Woods, good luck the rest of the tournament.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll see you on camera a lot more this
Hopefully,
weekend.
yeah.
And I think we're going to let you get back and prepare for round 4.
Try to win round 4. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So there you have it. That's Conley Woods Cranberries deck. And then we're going to bring Rich Hagon in, and we're going to sit down and talk a little bit about the Innistrad block constructed format. For Brian David Marshall, well, I am Brian David Marshall, signing off from a live deck tech. So we'll see you for more Magic soon.